So next we have The Canal from 2014 by Ivan Kavanagh. A film archivist finds his sanity crumbling after he is given an old 16mm film reel with footage from a horrific murder that occurred in the early 1900s. I said, a bit too much like Sinister without being nearly as unsettling for my taste. Antonia Campbell-Hughes, who played David's distressed best friend Claire, and also just released a thriller as her directorial debut, which I thought was interesting. It's called It Is In Us All. I wrote it down to look up later.
Okay.
Was the standout for me. She kind of blew me away.
She did a good job with very little.
Yeah. Hannah Hoekstra, who played the murdered wife, was also one of the tourists killed in the very beginning of Cocaine Bear.
Was she really?
I just thought that was so fun.
That's so fun. I feel like, I've heard this before, that horror is a very small community.
Yeah.
Like, once you're in it, you really don't leave. We saw the same three Irish actors.
It's like all of them. Competently made in all aspects. I just don't think I'd ever be interested in watching it again, which I did to watch with you, but it's just on my own. I'm never going to put this on. Also, I sort of always hate that in these types of stories, the murdered wife always cheats, as if their husbands might not have killed them if they didn't cheat, which I just don't buy. Why aren't they allowed to be a total victim of their husband's violent insecurity the way so many women are in real life? 2.5 stars. It was well made. It was fine. It just feels like a movie that I have seen a lot of times.
This really is an absolutely middle of the road movie.
Yeah.
It's competently made and shot, but it doesn't do anything spectacular.
Right.
And I said this, that it doesn't even do anything clever in the end that you think might be a satisfying payoff, because it throws in Satan worship and child murder, which is like, what was the point?
Why?
And this actually reminds me of, I don't think you've seen this movie, The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
No, I haven't.
I did complain to you about it. And spoilers for this movie. The Wolf of Snow Hollow is a movie that's made worse by the fact that it thinks it's better than its genre. It tries to take the trappings of like werewolf movies and horror genre and then subvert it and be like, oh, you thought it was an actual werewolf. It's just some rando that we saw for 10 seconds, when a much more satisfying payoff would be that it turns out that the protagonist, the head cop investigating these murders, who has substance issues, alcoholism specifically, who has anger issues, that he is the killer he's tracking down.
Yeah, and he just doesn't know it.
And he doesn't know it. You'd have to change certain things, but it'd be very minimal overall. And it's very frustrating because that movie is very well shot, and the camera being a character is such a theme of that movie. But that's what's really frustrating, and The Canal reminded me of it, because The Canal would be a better movie if it turned out that, because his wife was having an affair, and it turns out that her friends all knew about it. She was literally getting ready to leave him with their son, and her mother knew about it and was supportive of it. And it would be a better movie if there was more laid out that the protagonist, that he had violent streaks.
Exactly.
That everyone noticed it, and that maybe there was this thing that preyed on cuckolded men.
Preyed on that in these people, sort of like The Shining.
Right. Or, like I said, like a La Llorona for women.
Yeah.
Where you're not supposed to cheat, and if you step outside of that, then you're open to being victimized. But again, it gets cut off by the fact that at the end it's like, oh, there was Satan worship here. They killed children and dragged the bodies to the canal.
It's just sort of what I mean by
fizzled
the whole,
out at the end.
What I mean by the whole, I just get tired of these murdered wives always cheating in these sorts of films, because this is very much a film that has been made over and over, and the woman always cheats. And I'm not saying that they can't sometimes cheat. Women cheat too, for sure. But in real life, statistically, people who kill their partners have a history leading up to that.
Yes.
They have a history of domestic violence leading up to that. It is almost never out of the blue.
And the film tries to do something with unreality of like what's real, what isn't, because the protagonist
he's clearly not a trustworthy narrator.
Yes, and I do want to say the film does a good job of showing him being crazy.
Yeah.
Where you can understand why everyone looks at him and is like, hey bud, you need to talk to somebody, especially his friend.
Mm-hmm.
Where he, as we saw the film, which was through his perspective, was a certain way, and then it's revealed to him later that him or someone that looked like him was actually killing these like two
people
women
that he thought specters were killing.
Yes. And it's like, that's an idea that belongs in a better movie that isn't afraid to be like, men can be the fucking worst.
Yeah.
And the idea that, no, you were the problem. It's your violent streak that did it. And you trying to absolve yourself of that.
I mean, in the realism vein, it's not really horror, but it's Shutter Island, is what it is.
I haven't seen that.
Well, you're spoiled now, sorry. But
I do know the twist of it.
But that's what it is. And I don't know, this just seems to be a very popular kind of plot. And it did, stylistically, it reminded me a lot of Sinister in what it was trying to do with the old film reel and the idea of the darkness coming from that. That's about where the similarities, and it's very much a stylistic thing that just reminds me a lot of Sinister. And Sinister is so scary and unsettling. And it's sort of like, you really don't want your work to be compared to Sinister unless you're bringing that much.
Unless you're doing like, I haven't seen Sinister, but it's been on my list, especially for like unreality psychosis reasons. That I've heard that it handles that very, very well. The horror of that.
I enjoyed Sinister. It's one of the few horror movies that has genuinely scared me.
Mm-hmm.
And much like The Descent, it's one of those films that I said, I'm never watching this again. And then a friend said, will you watch this with me? And I said, sure. So I don't really hold myself to that rule, but I feel like in the moment when I first watched it say, I'm never watching this again.
But the fact that you had that thought of like, I can't watch this again.
Yeah, it was that unsettling to me.
The Canal for me, it's like, it's competently enough made that it's like, well, this isn't a bad movie, but it is bland.
Yeah.
And I think that and
I will say, to the point of your comparison to The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which I haven't seen, I don't think this movie thinks it's better than its genre.
No, it doesn't.
I think it knows exactly what its genre is, and it's not trying to be anything but.
And I think that, you know what, you saying that, I feel like Wolf of Snow Hollow thinks it's better than the horror genre. I think The Canal falls into the comfortable tropes of it to be like, oh, it's not just this demon.
We're gonna hit every beat.
Right. It's not just this, this entity that preys on men with violent tendencies who then get cheated on and who want to enact that revenge. There's also Satan worship. And it's not even just this idea of men who are violent, not just taking it out on their wives, but also their children. But like, oh no, we have to bring in some reason a child being targeted because a violent father isn't believable enough.
Yeah, it sucks.
It does suck. I do want to say, I did really like the styling of the nanny, where she's wearing makeup and looks normal until the very end when she's terrified and clearly ready to run. And I remember and I was watching this thing, as a nanny, at what point do you just quit? And about when she did was when I was like,
I liked that though. I liked that she held out until then.
And she even kept saying,
she only stayed for the kid.
I don't want to leave Billy.
That's so real.
Yeah.
That is so real. You definitely, I mean, I'm not going to get into it on this, but I was an au pair for a time of 2 young children, and it was by far and away the worst occupation/living situation I have ever experienced, and I have been homeless. So it was really bad, and I wanted to leave within a few months, but I stuck it out as long as I did because I did not want to leave those kids. And it's so real. And there were other people involved who were also working in this situation who also had stuck around just for those kids, because that's a real thing. You get so attached to them and they're so vulnerable, and you're thinking, if I leave them alone with these people, they're going to turn out awful.
Yeah.
They're going to turn out awful. But if I stay around, maybe I can shield them. Maybe I can influence them for the better. It just kind of sucks. It just sucks to be put in that situation, because you're never going to be able to take these kids with you. Sophie the nanny was never going to be able to take that kid with her.
No.
She has absolutely no legal ties to that kid.
And even as the protagonist was being put under the magnifying glass, the scrutiny of, whether or not his kid was going to get taken away from him, his lawyer used that, well, this was a nanny who he caught doing drugs in her room.
Yeah, she was smoking a blunt
and listening to music. And the thing is, I even really like that, and
he clearly also didn't even care.
Yeah, he didn't care. That's what I was going to say.
Stuff going on.
Yeah, that I was going to say, he clearly didn't care about the fact that she was smoking a joint, and that she even was very casual about it, of oh, sorry. Yeah, didn't think you'd see me. But that fact still could be used against her.
Yeah.
And that's clearly the only reason that he retained custody of his kid.
Right. I liked her as a character. I liked that moment of her just being I don't want to leave him. But then, she does, because it's either stay and get killed.
Yeah.
Or
there was just one truly stupid moment to me that I was like,
a mother-in-law?
Or no.
Oh, okay.
It was when he's trying to show Claire the thing, and he specifically sets up the projector to project on a wall that has a giant fucking hole in it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the filmmakers want this moment where there's this figure coming towards the screen and the projector, and then the figure crawls out of the wall. But that would not fucking happen.
I don't think the hole was real.
But they mention it. They mention that he breaks open holes in the wall.
Oh, I guess that's true. There were multiple holes, though.
I think the hole was real.
It was
real, and it was just the filmmakers relying on us being stupid.
I thought you were going to say when she kissed him.
No.
I feel like that was...
I do think that was real.
I think that was real, but I think that was more of a... I do think that she did have feelings for him.
Yes, and again, that's... Credit to the actress.
Credit to the actress by far. By that point, it felt more to me like a tool of persuasion.
Yes,
I don't think she was genuinely trying to get with this guy. She was scared out of her mind. I think she was trying to get him to basically come back to reality.
And also, I feel like that was, again, credit to this actress for this performance, where I think it was, because human emotions are very messy, where she's been harboring these feelings for him for years, and she's now confronted with the fact that he might have definitely killed his wife.
I think that she had no real question about it anymore.
And not just that he killed his wife, but that he's acting irrational.
Acting very irrational, very scary.
He's crazy.
He's crumbling.
And she just wants him to, again, come back down to normality. Yeah. And even just... she's literally begging him to admit it, that she'll be there for him. Just admit it.
It's I'll tell them what a good person you are. I'll be your character witness, basically. But please just acknowledge reality.
Yeah.
And then he kills her for it.
Yeah.
So don't be friends with violent men.
Never gonna. But again, the film, I feel like it just doesn't do the work, because that's not what the movie is. But a better movie would have been doing the work to show that he was a violent person who becomes that.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, but it's
competently made. It's not
competently
bad.
made. Yeah,
it's not bad.
It feels like I would believe this as a movie playing in the background of another movie.
Yeah.
Or if you literally are just trying to fill out a sheet of, okay, we're going to have on St. Patrick's Day a horror movie marathon. We need a bunch of horror movies by Irish filmmakers. Okay, we have a space. Throw the Canal in there. Okay, it's fine.
Just do what we did, basically.
Literally. But I mean that even knowing what it is.
Yeah.
It'll be a horror movie.
It's not going to knock your socks off.
Right. It's not going to knock your socks off. It has But
it's not a total waste of time.
Yeah.
Up next, we have The Cured from 2017 by David Bean. I think it's Freen. I think I typoed this man's name. Hold on. Sorry, Mr. Freen. I love your work.
Literally the movie made specifically for you.
Literally, I love it. Is Freen. I fucking misspelled his name. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm cutting that out. David Freen, who also directed a coming-of-age film that came out a few years ago called Dating Amber. And I need to watch it. And I think you will probably want to watch it because it's set in 1995 in Ireland, 2 years after homosexuality is decriminalized. It's about two teenagers who are both gay and decide to beard for each other so that they're not bullied anymore. And it's their coming of age story as they both come into their queerness and everything.
This movie was very homoerotic. That does not surprise me.
So he's gay himself, okay. The writer and director, and I really want to watch that. But anyway, we're not talking about Dating Amber. We're talking about The Cured. A disease that turns people into zombies has been cured. Society discriminates against the once infected zombies, as do their own families, which causes social issues to arise. This leads to militant government interference. Sorry, I'm just coming off a bout of the plague.
She's one of the cured.
I'm one of the cured. I said, feels very in conversation with In the Flesh. Sam Keeley, Tom Von Lawler, and Elliot Page really deliver. I kept having to pause and take a break because it was so bleak. I don't have much to say beyond it blew me away. The acting, the world building, the tenderness and slivers of hope put behind each piece of it felt very reminiscent of Children of Men, one of my favorite films of all time. Devastating watch, very emotionally affecting, 4.5 stars.
Within 5 minutes of watching this, I was just like, this is a Tierney film.
This was a me film, bitch.
If you want to understand Tierney's psyche, you just watch this film.
This film was made with me in mind.
This was a truly amazing film. This was very good. This is one of the top stars of this list.
I think it was my highest rated on this list.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's beautiful cinematography. It's cinematography. It has amazing acting moments, and the writing is really good. The score. All of it, bro. And thematically, how it fulfills everything it sets up.
Yeah. I just really loved this movie. It blew me away.
And it really does feel like something made by a gay man, especially how it handles Connor.
It really, 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 really does. And Senan.
Yeah.
Senan and Connor's relationship, very homoerotic, like you said.
No, I literally was waiting for the reveal that they were gay lovers in quarantine.
I like that it wasn't explicit about it though. So a lot of the people that I read talking about this movie were fans of In the Flesh. I'm also a fan of In the Flesh. I love In the Flesh. I think it's a really solid zombie show. I think it's a really solid show on how being closeted and specifically being forced to be closeted by a homophobic environment literally kills. I think In the Flesh is very good. I understand the comparison. They have a lot in common thematically, plot-wise. I get the comparison for sure. But I feel like The Cured stands on its own. I think they're both very good. I understand when you're a fan of something that is super original, like In the Flesh, and you see something doing something similar that came after, you're immediately defensive. And you're thinking, oh, you're totally ripping off this thing that I love. And I understand that reflex. I don't think that's what The Cured did. I don't think it ripped it off at all. I think The Cured took the same kind of conversation down a different dialogue path. And I recommend them both highly, but they're also they're very different in the fact that In the Flesh is a show with multiple seasons. It has time to stretch things out and, touch on different elements. And The Cured is very compact. For not being an action-heavy movie, The Cured is very fast-paced.
Yes.
And it has to be because it's just one film. It's like an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. So it gets so much done in that amount of time and covers, almost the same amount of ground as In the Flesh.
Really? I have not seen In the Flesh.
I know. So that's why I'm expanding on this for your benefit.
Me and the ignorant viewers at home.
Yeah, and also I like that The Cured is not explicitly, it's also about Senan and Connor and their sexuality.
No, it isn't. It's about...
In the Flesh does that very competently.
Yes.
And that's a big part of In the Flesh, because another big difference between them is just the virus itself. In the flesh, they are already dead and they come back to life. They reanimate. They are Night of the Living Dead zombies. They're Romero zombies. And they get cured, sort of, but it's more like they get suppressors. And if they miss a dose, they could go rabid again. And so that's a constant point of tension versus the cured. Once you're cured, you're cured.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. And in the flesh, yes, there's an argument to be made that they would face the prejudice that they face even if they were cured, no matter what. But a lot of the fear and hate that stems from that is the fact that they could go back at any time. Like if they miss a dose.
And that's a real threat.
That's a real threat, right? In the cured, there really isn't a reason to be scared of them anymore, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
And that, I think, is a huge difference. And I don't know, I love it. I love both of them. I think they both took it in such different directions. And specifically In the Flesh with, the whole gay thing, because that's a big deal. So Kieran killed himself because he was a gay teenager in a homophobic environment. He thought that he had lost the guy that he was really into, who he didn't think was into him, and it was just not and he was an 18-year-old. Like, what do you do in that situation?
The God he was into, but he wasn't sure that God was into him.
No, the guy he was into.
Oh, I thought you said God. I thought it was about religion, and you just said it the funniest way possible.
Yeah. No.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
The guy he was into. And it was just very, teenage melodrama. But because it was such a powder keg of he's already in this homophobic environment, day in, day out, closeted, not accepting of himself, hating this about him, he turns to suicide. And that's how he died. And then he reanimates. And so a big part of that show is him both coming to terms with being reanimated, but also coming to terms with being gay and being fine with that.
I will say the things I've seen about In the Flesh have been from gay people.
Yeah. Because we care. Who else cares about us?
Right.
But The Cured, I agree. I think it does have such homoerotic moments, but they are not even close to the main points.
No, they're not. And I feel like it's more about explaining motive, like why Connor is so obsessed with Senan following him. And even when why
Senan forgives Connor. I mean, Connor infected him. Connor made him kill his brother, basically. And Senan never holds that against him.
And even when you see this one moment of Connor like having that similar moment of connection and communication with another person, it's someone who looks similar to Senan.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like about the film is that it really doesn't shy away from messiness, where each character is right in certain ways.
Yes.
Like,
it's all shades of gray.
It is. And even the quote unquote parole officer, the one in charge, who is like a violent military man.
Yeah, I mean, he sucks. He's abusing his power.
He is abusing his power. He's
prejudiced. Yeah.
Very willing and ready to be physically violent with his charges, but he's also not wrong about Connor.
No. And he also doesn't just kill Connor. He's trying to take him in.
Yeah, he's doing it by the book.
As a guy who wasn't afraid to abuse his power before, it shows that even he isn't willing to cross a certain line.
And I really love Elliot Page's character Abby, who immediately clocks Connor when she knows his kind of backstory. He's only really turning to the rebellion because he's not being...
He wants the power.
Right. He's not just being welcomed back into society. Yeah. And again, going back to the abusive military guy who's just I know people like you, you're used to the world being handed to you, but it's not your world anymore.
He was clearly very wealthy. He came from wealth.
And even I knew that Connor was bad from that first scene with his dad.
Yeah.
It really masterfully shows it, because it turns out Connor killed his mother and his father saw it. And that's part of why, even when cured, his father wants nothing to do with him. Connor has to be in the cured accommodations. He doesn't have any family willing to take him in. And he shows up to his house and he tries to talk to his father, and he tries to manipulate his father using his mother.
Well, the first thing that he says is, they have me working
As a
as a
cleaner.
cleaner. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He doesn't say like, hey, sorry about killing my mom.
How you been?
Yeah, there's none of that. It's immediately what.
Hey, Dad, let's go for a pint.
It's immediately, I'm not at the station that I deserve.
And he says,
I need you to help me get there.
Maybe you could put in a good word.
Yeah.
And then when his dad brushes him off, he's just like, well, Ma wouldn't want this.
Yeah. And
again, it feels very much like I can understand a gay person making this, where like they've met people like Connor who are just bad people.
Yeah.
Who are just abusers. And the specific way that abusers will try to isolate people.
Exactly.
And manipulate them.
The fact that the parole officer specifies they choose who to kill and who to turn.
Yes.
Connor saw Senan as someone that he could use.
Yes, who he probably was attracted to.
Yes, and he knew that he had to isolate Senan from his loved one, who was his brother, to do that. He didn't decide to turn Luke as well.
And he specifically wanted Senan to be the one to kill Luke.
To be the one to kill him,
so he could use that. And the way that he tries to scope out like Abby to see like, can I
manipulate her?
How much is she going to be sympathetic to me?
Yeah.
And when he when he figures out that, well, she isn't going to be, like, he has to isolate Senan from them.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's a hard watch.
It's a pretty brutal film. Like I said, I had to keep pausing it to take breaks and talk to my loved ones. I would just leave my room and go hang out with my sister or my niece for a while.
No, it doesn't shy away from the hard questions. And even with Dr. Lyon, where Dr. Lyon is at a point where she doesn't care about anything except her wife.
Who is infected, and she's one of the resistant.
Right.
So the cure doesn't work on her, and Dr. Lyons is trying to refine it so that it can cure the remaining resistant, but especially her wife.
Right. And you understand from when you see her wife, you don't know the relationship at first. Yeah,
I thought she was her sister.
Yeah, I did too. And then I was pleasantly surprised where I was like, oh, no, it's gay.
Yeah, once you see the picture, like the picture of them when they were together and healthy, you get, okay.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah. No, they're a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you understand her where like she's willing to work with Connor, who has recruited her to get her access into the systems
to try to save her wife.
Like
the government is trying to euthanize.
The thing is, she thinks that they're going to take her wife hostage as one of the resistant, and
it's like bargaining chip.
Yes, as
give us rights or we will unleash.
We've made our demands clear. Yeah. We are a legitimate political organization.
Yeah, exactly.
She thinks that's what it is, and Connor manipulates her with that, and it's really heartbreaking because like you understand where she's coming from, because like
where all of them are coming from. You understand
of course.
Where the cured are coming from. I mean, they're being shit on by society. They've been kind of abandoned by everybody.
And even as like when you hear the radio where it's the one person's, oh well, they revert to violence, whatever, and the other person is like, yeah, but what choices are we giving them? Are we giving them support? And even Abby, when talking to the military guy, is like, well, it's hard to be good when your parole officer beats the shit out of you.
Yeah, because you understand everybody. You understand when Abby kicks Senan out when she finds out that he killed her husband and lied about it.
And specifically because Connor does it in this most hurtful way possible. Like he's very calculated in how he does it to try and get her to be as hurt as possible. Whereas if Senan had been open, I think she would have been
honest when she first asked.
Yeah,
I think that she would have. I think it would have been hard.
Yes,
but I think she would have still taken him in.
I agree. I think
what hurt for her was the betrayal of him lying to her about it when she asked.
And her saying, how could you sleep here?
Yeah.
How could you do that to me? And
yeah. It's pretty brutal.
And again, one of the moments where I was like, no, this was made by gay people was when you see that, but also when you see the footage of, Abby's just looking at old home footage because her and Luke, Senan's son, Killian, he was a baby when all this went down. He was an infant. and now he's like elementary school. So you understand that like years have passed. She's watching home footage, and it's Luke and Senan, and Luke hands off the baby, and Senan's holding him and, you know, cooing at him, and
Really the new uncle.
yeah, and Luke is just like, oh, he suits you, and Senan just has this like look where it's like it's not gonna happen for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just clocked that as a gay person.
I agree. So I looked this up because I was curious. And that's how I found out about dating Amber and David being a gay man. But also, I looked up about Sam Keeley, who plays Senan. He's very private, which I totally respect. This is not me being like, let's speculate on this person's sexuality, because I don't agree with that. But he has been very private, but when he has mentioned his partner, because he does have a partner, he has been very pointedly every time using gender neutral terminology. And even if he's straight, even if, you know, his partner is a woman, whatever may be, again, I'm not here to speculate on that. I just feel like that sort of attention means that there is a level of care and thought put into this for him.
Yes.
And I feel like he brought that to this role.
Yes. No, I never doubted that like Senan and Connor were a thing.
Yeah.
And that's specifically why Connor was so angry when Senan betrayed him, and why he specifically had to hunt him down. And I don't know. I like watching things by my family because it's like, yeah, I get it.
It's great. And I loved it. I hate coming back to just comparing it to In the Flesh, because I just feel like that doesn't do anybody any favors. They're both really good. But when discussing In the Flesh as, you know, gay media, which it is, and I think it's well done. I think it's fine. It's gay media created by straight people, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And because of that, there's just a different feeling to The Cured.
Oh, there's a difference between something made by gay people and something that, even if very well researched, like done with the utmost
care. And very
care.
sensitively made. And, you know, for the time as well, like it came out, I think in 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. It was a big deal. So, you know, not to detract from that at all. And I think that the showrunner did a very good job with it. I do think every interview where he's like, I don't really believe in labels. All right. It's a very straight person thing to say. But
straight person who's profiting off of gay people.
Yeah, it's a very straight person thing to say. I don't want to say, oh, he's a straight person profiting off of gay people, because it was not profitable at the time for him to be centering a gay.
All right, I'll retract that.
You know, so I'm not going to say that. But, you know, it's a very straight way to put things when discussing stuff like that. And you know, that it comes through a little in The Flesh. Again, I think it's well done. I'm, you know, not to detract at all. It's certainly my favorite gay zombie. But I just feel like The Cured, it's handled differently.
I haven't seen The Flesh, so I can't say the difference. But for me, I can always tell the difference because it handles the nuances. Like, it's unsaid, but if you know, you understand.
Yeah.
Adjacent to that discussion, I do want to bring up, I have not seen much of Elliot Page's work after Juno. So I'm used to seeing him pre-transition as a teenage girl and that kind of thing. And I watched The Cured with Tierney, and I mentioned to Tierney how, like, wow, it's so weird to see him as a mom, because I never saw him when he was an adult woman. And it was very funny for me watching The Cured, because I was like, no, for me, you could tell he was going to be a trans man. Like, I don't know how to specify the styling.
Star.
Like, I don't know how to specify it, but like the fact that it's Abby does wear makeup, but it's just the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Around the eyes of eyeliner, and it's just the ponytail, completely unstyled.
Abby is not portrayed very femininely at all.
No, but even then, there's like a scene where Abby is wearing a button up, and it's like every single button up to the neck. And even in the layered styles, which, you know, again, watched a lot of Irish horror recently, and I can see this, but like the difference of the styling where wearing a men's crew neck all the way up
Yeah.
Like, it changes the silhouette.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was something about it where I was like, no, I can tell. This is an egg. Like,
I think the only other thing...
I do want to say, though, Elliot Page knocked it out.
Oh, yeah.
The scene where Abby confronts Senan and finally, she just bangs her fists on the table and is just like, tell me the fucking truth. And God, just that line, why would you come here? Why would you sleep here?
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah. He killed it. The whole cast killed. I mean, truly. I did watch, I don't know the name of this film. I have never looked it up since because it had a very upsetting, honestly, rape scene in it. It had Elliot Page and Dwight from The Office, and they play vigilantes, and they start out because Dwight from The Office wants to get revenge on his wife's murder, and Elliot Page's character just kind of becomes his like partner in that.
I forgot the name of the actor from Dwight from The Office.
Something Rainn Wilson.
Rainn Wilson. Okay, I'm gonna look up Rainn Wilson, Elliot Page. They've been in a bunch of movies together.
Really?
Juno. He was the store owner.
Oh my God, that's right.
Super.
Yeah.
After his wife Liv Tyler leaves him a fry cook, Rainn Wilson.
Oh, I thought she was killed.
Emulates a TV superhero and transforms himself into a costume vigilante.
Yep.
I've never seen it.
It was very upsetting. Just based on that one scene. I truly actually don't remember anything else about it. I remember that one scene and how much it upset me. Anyway,
The Cured,
is so worth watching. If you watch anything on this list.
Honestly, that is like cream of the crop, thematic cinematography, its performance, it's so good. It really does deliver. And the thing that I really like about it is that it, again, every character is shades of gray. Like, you understand where they're coming from. And even someone like Connor, who is genuinely a bad person, who is genuinely just kind of taking advantage of something. Like, he's clearly taking advantage of people of the Cured's horrific position in society. You do understand when he says some things about being part of the Cured, and it really does not shy away from hard questions that you would have to confront. If you were confronted with a family member who was a zombie and did horrific things, including killing your loved ones, how would you react? Like, would you be able to forgive them? And especially knowing that they remember, does that make it better that they're remorseful, or does it make it almost worse for you? Yeah. So
it's a brutal watch. It's so good. So next up we have The Devil's Doorway from 2018 by Ashlyn Clark. In the fall of 1960, Father Thomas Riley and Father John Thornton were sent by the Vatican to investigate a miraculous event in an Irish home for fallen women, only to uncover something much more horrific. Okay.
This is a movie we have a lot to talk about.
My review for this is so long.
All right,
so long.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So to give some context, my mom's parents were both Irish, both raised mostly in New York City by first-generation Irish Catholic families. And my sister and I were also raised Catholic, no small feat in the American South. And the fact that it wasn't until the 7th film on the list of Irish horror that Catholicism cropped up was honestly really surprising. Anyone who knows anything about the Catholic Church in Ireland already knows by the second clip of text explaining the Magdalene Laundries, church-run homes for quote-unquote wayward women in Ireland, what exactly this movie is going to be about. The Exorcist cemented the partnership of the young priest versus the older priest. In this case, the younger priest literally refers to the older priest as a doubting Thomas. The older priest says, "I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been all over the world. The only evil I've seen is the humankind." The Mother Superior at the Magdalene Laundry says, "Do you know how many of these babies had fathers who were fathers? Father?" These two lines can sum up the supposed conceit of this film. I prefer, actually, when the imagery of the asylum itself is used with the audio of interviews or explanations, which I know a lot of people complained about, but I liked that, rather than when it begins to focus heavily on the usual possession narrative tropes. We don't need to see the levitating and sudden bursts of flame to understand the palpable fear from those who are inundated with the church and its teachings. And since it's a story at its heart about the mistreatments by the church of people within the church against socially maligned, vulnerable people, especially women, girls, and children, truly Kathleen didn't need to be actually possessed for it to make sense. And in a lot of ways, I think there actually being something satanic in nature going on undermines the story. There is a real factual horror behind the Magdalene laundries, which the film itself recognizes and understands. So often, Father Riley acts as a mouthpiece for the audience, stating that this is a sick child, not a vestibule for evil, that no evil can come close to the evils perpetrated by mankind, that the laundries and the people supporting them are hell for the women inside of them, and disgust him, only for the film itself to push against those arguments by showing us that actually Kathleen is possessed and the nuns are right to fear her, that the nuns are not committing the real world evil because they want to or have been taught to, but because of supernatural satanic influence. The castigation of the laundry's historic and not so historic atrocities is hamstringed by the film's capitulation to popular fictional possession tropes. Father Riley can try his best to insist that Kathleen should be removed from the nun's care and placed in a hospital, which is absolutely true from a reasonable position, but his argument is defanged by the fact that we, the audience, are shown that there is undeniable evidence of supernatural goings-on, which makes any reasonable reaction unreasonable, because the situation itself is unreasonable, and in fact, he just seems silly for it. There really isn't an it's all a trick explanation for levitation or summoning flames with your bare hand. Instead, I wish they had chosen not to show that footage, instead relying on the biases of human witness in the case of religiously traumatized women and Father John, who is desperate to witness some act of divinity, who are already understood to be unreliable, or shown things that could be explained away, as in the case of the exorcism of Emily Rose. There being no real attempt at an exorcism due to Father Riley's own admittance that his faith isn't strong enough was a subversion of the genre, and there were a few others. I simply wish the film in its entirety had chosen to go down that path, thus emphasizing its own point to the fullest. There didn't need to be devil worshipping for the horror to get across. The horror was already there, in the real history of the real women and children who were tortured under the guise of religion. These women and children were tortured and killed in real life in the name of Catholicism, not Satan. 3 stars for the filmmaking, acting, and the good chunk of the story which focuses on the actual horrors, before devolving into a collection of fictional possession tropes initially invented by a trad cath who would die before actually criticizing the church. I didn't like this film. This was the definition of, they had me in the first half.
Not gonna lie.
They had me hook, line, and sinker only to fucking shoot itself in the fucking head. I could not believe how just completely this film demolished its own goddamn point. If you watch this, just stop it after Kathleen dies. Because honestly, that's it. That's all you need. That gets the point across. The rest of it was just hogwash.
So, Tierney and I watched this film separate. And I watched this, and after I watched it, I texted her, and I was just like, oh, just watch The Devil's Doorway. And Tierney was just like, what'd you think? And I sent her this long voice memo, and I was like, well, overall, I liked the film. And then I rambled on and basically said what she said, and specifically also what she said about being defanged at the end. And she was just like, oh, thank God. When you started that voice memo, I thought we were going to have a problem.
I was so ready to fight on this hill. I was ready to die on this hill. This was not going to be a vivarium situation where you could talk me into it. I don't understand what happened.
It's a film that...
I said this before, it feels like 2 different movies.
It does. It's a very frustrating film because it's so good when it's good, and it's so right when it's good, and it just, again, defangs itself. It ruins its own thematic points. And to get really into it, I think it's interesting that Tierney and I fall on different points of whether or not the supernatural things are actually happening.
Yes.
And for me, I favor the idea that the supernatural things such as the statues weeping are real, as proof that it's divinity saying, no, you are not doing this in my name. And the idea that these nuns, and especially Mother Superior, have been so corrupted by their own hatred and whatever, that they interpret heavenly things as demonic. I really like that idea. You are not doing doing this in my name. God himself hates you.
And I don't dislike that. I would be fine with, truly, I would be fine with anything if it didn't do what it did. But I tend to lean more towards, this is not a place of worship anymore. This is not a house of God. This is an empty box run as a torture chamber. I would have been fine with that. I would have been equally fine with there being nothing supernatural going on at all.
And I want to be clear.
That's the real horror. The real horror is the real horrors that happened in real life in the name of Catholicism.
We would both be satisfied with either of our things being the case. This movie wasn't either of those things.
Oh my God.
We're both just like, well, fuck it.
It sets the whole film up as this. And then in the last third, completely demolishes that by making the nuns Satan worshippers, actually. Oh, the twist is the nuns have been worshiping Satan this whole time. And what the fuck? What the fuck? Truly, it is just so disrespectful. It is so disrespectful. These were real places that tortured and killed real people in the name of this real religion.
Yep.
And you're going to take that and make it the basis of your horror movie and then say, oh, but what if they actually did it in the name of Satan? Fuck you truly very much.
And especially watching this in 2024 when there have been so many residential schools in Canada that have been revealed.
I mean, they were revealed before 2018, even. Like,
they were, but I feel like the coverage and the reality setting in of the was in recent years.
Sure.
I'm just saying that too as a recent thing because this is set in the 60s.
This is set in the 60s.
Where, you know, people knew what was going on.
Yeah.
With the Magdalene laundries. And watching it now where it's, we know what this is. It's horrific. And saying this, it just seems like such a waste of performance between the Mother Superior.
The cast was incredible.
Absolutely incredible. The woman who portrayed the Mother Superior was fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And her against Father Thomas.
Yeah.
And how Father Thomas also...
Who is Father Riley, by the way. I call him Father Riley throughout my entire review. That's just his last name. He's the same. It's the same person.
They always call him Riley. Thomas, but it's because it's another priest. So he calls him Thomas. The two of them against each other, where they both are so critical of the church as an institution. They both don't trust it. And the difference between them that Father Thomas Riley, he still believes in goodness. You know, he still wants to do good in his role as a priest versus the Mother Superior who has just found a niche to be cruel.
Yeah.
And her anger that as a woman in the church, she's relegated to sorting out the trash.
Yeah.
So to speak. When she talks to Father Thomas Riley.
Call him Thomas.
Okay.
I just wanted to state that to be clear.
Okay. So just so we're clear. And he's the actor who's shown in...
He's in fucking everything on this list. Like, he's a prolific actor.
It's really rough because this is the film on our list where like he gets to show his acting chops.
And he's fucking gold in it.
And he's so good.
He kills it.
But when she's talking to Father Thomas and she's talking to him, and the way that she says, do you know how many girls in here whose fathers were fathers? Father. The way she spits that last father. It's so good. And she talks about how like, oh, well, we're the ones that clean up the church's messes. We're the ones who handle, what you don't want to stomach. And it's so clear that she doesn't view it as we handle the people thrown out by the church, the people who should be taken care of. We're not helping the outcasts. It's not a God help the outcasts from Hunchback of Notre Dame. She is resentful of the fact that her as a woman relegates her to that. She also sees them as trash.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard moment when John, the young hot priest, who isn't featured a lot, in front of the
he's holding
camera.
the camera at the,
I really respect that, where like he's not in front of the camera
he's
a
the
lot.
looker, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're talking to Mother Superior after literally one day there.
Yeah,
and
he's the one that she actually spits that line at.
Yeah.
Because he very timidly is like, hey, we're kind of worried about the way that these women are treated here.
One day.
Father Thomas doesn't say anything about it at that point.
It's one day there.
Seen this over and over, and he knows nothing's going to come of confronting the Mother Superior about just the average offenses going on at this place. He only really gets into her about Kathleen's treatment.
Right.
Because it's so extreme.
Yeah. He's couching it in so much
He's
language.
trying to be very polite. He's offering deference to her because she's been in the church way longer than him. She's his elder.
And her just steamrolling over him. And I feel like if this movie didn't defang itself, it could be such a great commentary on how women can gain power in patriarchal society. Like, and how women who are truly awful, truly bad people will rise to the top because they know how to weaponize
and almost always
misogyny.
Other women, other more vulnerable women.
I mean, literally on camera as he's filming them, one of the nuns grabs a woman by the hair and drags her off. And I just wish this film was better because it handles found footage so well.
I like found footage. Let me go on record with that. A lot of people are mean about found footage. A lot of people are really mean about it. I think it's fine. I think it can be done really well. I do not think the only good found footage
is the Blair Witch.
Is the Blair Witch. Although I do think the Blair Witch Project is a masterpiece, but it's not the only good found footage. And I'm tired of people being snobby about it. But this one is really, it's done well. I really liked the footage cut with the audio. A lot of people are complaining about that. Why can't we see the...
Really?
That's the point. That's the point. The whole point is you see the imagery of the religion all over the place. You see the fact that this is a church. You see the statues of Mary. Like, that's the whole point while you're listening to what's happening to these women in the name of this religion. That is the whole point. What are you missing?
So the idea is it's happening in the 60s, and Father John is this young priest who's like new to the order, and he has these cameras and whatever, and like this idea that it's very new. And so the way that the characters regard the camera being there, it feels realistic of like, this is new. And there's a point where he's setting up the camera on the statue because he wants to catch it, the statue crying blood, because that's the miracle that they're sent to investigate. And Father Thomas is just like, you're wasting your film. Go film elsewhere. Go film the women doing laundry. Go scout about. And I think that this is about him understanding what kind of place this is, where he's just like, go scout out the people around. But there is a sense of him just being like, well, you're wasting your film. And when...
Because this is the 60s. That shit's expensive.
Yeah, and you can't play it back. It's not digital. Like, there's
like he'll catch evidence of supernatural goings on and won't be able to prove it.
Yeah.
They can't develop it yet. It really could have been something.
And again, I don't know if this is just me imprinting my own take on something, but I feel like the fact that Father Thomas was born there is not really developed as much. And I really love how he handles it though, where, oh, what did she say to you when she spoke to you in ancient Greek? And he's like, oh, that you were born here. And he's just kind of like, yeah, you know what? It's probably true. I was just given to an orphanage and I might have been born here.
Yeah, I haven't been able to check the records.
Whatever about it.
And then he does, and he sees... all of these children are missing, and it's obvious that they were killed. Because again, that's a real thing that happened here in places like this. It's so frustrating not knowing this for sure. I tried to dig up the original script. I tried so hard, and I could not find it. Because I genuinely wanted to know how much of this was actually in Ashlyn Clark's vision for this film and how much of it was studio interference or film board interference, somebody's outside interference saying, no, this is too much of a scathing critique on the church. You have to curb it. You have to throw in something like
they
this
weren't
kind of ending. Because,
like the others.
Yeah. Like I said at the very beginning, the quote from Kate Dolan, I mean, the Catholic Church and their thumb over Ireland cannot be overstated for many, 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 many years. So I don't think it's some big grand conspiracy tinfoil hat mentality to say maybe there was some outside influence saying, no, you can't end it like this.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure.
Like,
and
there's a moment.
I don't want to give her that credit of the benefit of the doubt if this was her vision all along. Because again, this is just an amount of disrespectful that goes beyond just making it a bad film.
Yeah.
You have based this on the real horrors of real life people who were tortured and killed. That means something. You are obligated at that point to treat it sensitively and as honestly as the fictional medium allows.
Yep.
This is not it. I understand this is a horror movie. I am not opposed to supernatural things going on. I am not opposed to taking liberties in that way.
Right.
This is not an acceptable way to take liberties, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is not an acceptable liberty to take. You cannot take a real world horror done by the Catholic Church in the name of the Catholic Church. And the liberty that you take with that is saying, actually, it was done in the name of Satanism.
So we're absolved.
So, yeah.
So if there were
that's an insane choice to make.
If there were awful things that happened at these houses, it was because it wasn't us.
It's an insane choice
not
to make,
us.
in my opinion.
Moving on.
Especially for everything I could find of the director/writer talking about this film. She really highlights the fact that it's about the Magdalene laundries, which were real horrors terrorizing women.
Like, I feel like people really don't understand and feel the horror that an abortion under these conditions was giving birth and then the baby dying.
Yeah, and you also probably died.
The mother dying.
I hated this movie, I'll be honest. Again, it was so well made in the first 2/3 of it that I couldn't not give it some credibility for that. Just the cinematography, the acting alone was so good. But the ending, I have never in my life sat through a film and seen an ending just completely tank a film the way that this one did.
For me, I feel frustrated to the point of almost anger. I want to like this.
I am angry.
There's so much.
This film made me pissed off.
There's so much about this that is so good. It handles the found footage in a way that is novel and genuinely really good. Also, very short film.
Very short film.
I want it to be good so bad.
Yeah, and it could have been.
There's a point where Father Thomas is talking to Kathleen and the side table shakes and then it's thrown across the floor. And the next scene is the confrontation between Father Thomas and the Mother Superior, where he throws down the files of all of the children who were born there who are not accounted for, and how he has talked to her contact at the adoption agency or whatever, and she can't account for any of these children. And the Mother Superior just kind of levels with him because he's just you killed them all. You killed them all. You killed them all. And the Mother Superior looks at him level and says, I didn't kill them. I sold them. You know, as well as I do, that there's not a lot of help from the church. So to keep this running, we have to sell them. And when Jesus brought a whip and overthrew the tables in the temple, it was specifically because there were people bringing money and exchanging money in the temple that's supposed to be a holy thing. And it just makes me, again, was angry, where it's this could have really meant something if you kept the supernatural, but that it was manifestations of the holy.
Yeah.
This idea of
of God.
Yes, she is using what should be a holy refuge for the cast off the Magdalens, and she's just using it to make money, to profit herself. This movie should have been something.
It should have been truly an infuriating experience to watch.
I feel like as I talk about it, the more I'm just angry.
That movie pissed me off. I ranted so much about that movie immediately after watching it. I ranted to my sister, who has not seen it. I ranted to Tyler, who has not seen it. I ranted to you immediately after you watched it.
You were hesitant, and then once I said it defanged its message, you were just yeah,
because the way that you started off, I was like, oh no.
And I get that. I was couching my response.
You were being very polite about it, but I'm not. Fuck this movie.
It does found footage very well. It does a period piece very well. The performances are amazing. The Mother Superior versus Father Thomas scenes are a treat just to watch. Actor versus actor. So good. And it's so infuriating that it defangs the entire message by, but it was Satan worship, so you don't have to really think about the fact that God's holy people can hurt the most vulnerable.
What frustrates me is that it's trying to have its cake, eat it too.
Yeah.
Because it still contained all of these critiques outside of the laundries.
Yeah.
Towards the church, which is, fair, but that holds no water anymore.
When you've decided that
this, which is supposed to be the image of the horrors and the critiques that you're leveling against the church, this actually turns out to be Satan.
Yeah.
And I get that you can be like, well, not all of the laundries were Satan worshippers, but this is the one in the film.
Yeah. This is the stand-in for all of the laundries. This is the one that we're watching. Yeah.
Fuck this movie.
I do want to say that I am kind of glad that this was the first movie I saw of that actor who played Father Thomas.
I agree.
And he was really fantastic. Like
he knocked it out.
He's a true actor, and it's very funny that the other movies, which is Grabbers and The Boys from County Hell, that he's in, like he plays the old drunk or just some old guy.
Yeah, every other role. Because I saw him in Unwelcome as well, which you didn't watch and don't. He played again the very bumbling local drunk.
He actually got to play his acting chops.
Yeah, and I'm glad for that. If for nothing else, I'm glad that this film gave him that opportunity.
Yeah.
But
like he really...
Christ, at what cost? Next we have The Hole in the Ground from 2019 by Lee Cronin, who also has directed a recent sequel in a horror franchise. This franchise is not that recent, but we both love it. Very recent sequel, like within the last year.
Don't do this to me.
You can do this.
Can I just be shot?
No. We both like this franchise, and it had a film come out this last year. A film franchise. Oh my god. It's not Halloween, it's not Hellraiser, it's not Friday the 13th. I'm literally just checking things off. It's not Friday the 13th. Oh man. It's not the soft movies, because I haven't seen all of them. Fuck, I know franchises are like 2 or 3 movies long, but like I don't think of them as that. When I think of franchises, I think of like you've been around since the 80s. Has it been? It can't be Evil Dead. Is it Evil Dead? It's Evil Dead! He directed Evil Dead Rise, which came out last year.
I guess because whenever we talk about Evil Dead, you always talk about how you hate the first one.
I know, I do. Okay, so, this is my hot horror fan take. I like the first Evil Dead film. Shoot me.
That's the only reason why I was like hesitant.
I like the franchise.
Okay.
I like every other Evil Dead film. I love the 2013 Evil Dead.
I know you do.
Genuinely. I love it. I really like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. I have not yet watched Evil Dead Rise. It's on my list, though. I need to watch it because it's up for a Fangoria Chainsaw Award, and I try to watch all of those before I vote.
Evil Dead, in a way, it almost feels like the Chucky franchise, where it's like, it's clearly... it's made and perpetuated by people who love the original.
I would agree with that, for sure.
I got that one.
You got that one after much deliberation.
Process of elimination, baby.
Honestly, I wasn't sure. The only reason that I was like, I don't know if he'll get this one was because I don't know that you follow recent movies the way that I do. Like,
girl, I don't.
Hole in the Ground from 2019, directed by Lee Cronin. A single mother living in the Irish countryside with her son begins to suspect he may not be her son at all and fears his increasingly disturbing behavior is linked to a mysterious sinkhole in the forest behind their house. I said, well-made changeling film. Did a good job of portraying the way persistent paranoia means that even when you think you fixed the problem, you will constantly wonder, what if? I also like that her first response was to try medication. I so often see these characters never questioning their own mental health, insanity, and what they're seeing and whether or not that's actually true. And honestly, I just cannot relate to that. I am always questioning whether or not what I saw was real. Had a neat
real psychosis out.
Exactly. Had a neat little descent moment. Would have loved to be able to see what the fuck was happening. Also, these changeling horror movies always have the parent digging underground to retrieve their stolen child, which seems like a lot of work. Why not just throw the changeling on the fire and have your kid delivered to your doorstep Amazon style? 3.5 stars.
The Hole in the Ground. First off, Tierney said this, and I cannot agree more. The poster for it looks like a middle grade horror novel.
It really does.
That you would find at your library, and also the title is. The Hole in the Ground is such a middle grade horror title. It makes me laugh.
Honestly, I feel like it would make a good middle grade horror
It would.
story. I really liked it.
I did too. I feel like it really nailed an unnatural child.
Yeah.
But in a way that was very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
But also really good.
It kept a very consistent tension.
Yes.
That I really, really enjoyed. And was something that I sort of was missing from films like The Hallow. I liked The Hallow. I thought The Hallow was good.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel consistently tense or unsettling.
No.
And to be fair, I don't think it was trying to.
No, it wasn't. There's certain movies, I think we should say, where it's like, here's the part where you care about them as people, and here's the danger.
Yeah. The Hole in the Ground felt very tense and unsettling from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And it never let up. Even the ending, like, hopeful scene of them, they're starting a new life together. But still, it still carried that tension.
He got his bike.
Yeah, he got his bike. It was all a way to get this bike. But it still carried that tension in that last scene of, but what if?
But what if?
And I really enjoyed that because that's so true. If you have something like this that challenges your perception and causes this deep set paranoia that's traumatizing.
Oh, it never goes away.
It never goes away. You
Never.
never stop questioning. It will never stop. And I liked that. And again, I like that she was like, okay, maybe I'm crazy actually. What if that's the case? Okay, take 4 on The Hole in the Ground, 2019.
Like a changeling, our takes keep getting replaced.
Clearly.
Okay, so starting fresh from the review.
I liked it.
I also really liked it. I think it was a really good take on the changeling. As said, these can be very triggering because if they're written by someone who doesn't know children, a lot of the quote-unquote weird behaviors are just very normal.
Yeah, or sometimes they're not quote-unquote normal, but it just feels like, okay, well, this kid might just have autism.
Yeah, but that's also what I mean by normal.
Again, quote-unquote normal, not really.
Like,
they are atypical, but that doesn't make them abnormal.
Yes, what I mean is like I could see a real child like having or doing these things. It's not supernatural.
Yeah, agreed.
But this movie does a really good job with that, where when the mother picks up on kind of odd behaviors, it's not necessarily the behaviors, but the changeling's response. Like when her son is suddenly very friendly with a kid that he said he couldn't stand, a few days before, and she asks about it very, just interested, casually, and the changeling just looks at her and says, I don't have to be friends with him.
Yeah, he's studying her.
Her response, and she's like, no, it's fine. And then later on, when she's catching on, there's props to that child actor.
Yeah, he
does
did
it very
a great
well.
job.
And I like that even after the reveal, when the changeling knows it's been caught and there's no ruse anymore, it still looks like a child.
Yeah.
And I even like when she sees her doppelganger after going down the hole in the ground, where it's just this blank face. There's no expression on it. And to me, that's almost like worse. Instead of seeing like, anger or hatred, because it's like, you understand though, something that's just you but a blank slate, that's horrifying.
Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoy every different version of the changeling in all of these movies.
Yeah.
Touch on the changeling myth. Every single one does it very differently, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I really did enjoy this one. Really good performances, good cinematography, and even just the way it handles the story, where like that this is a woman who is leaving an abusive relationship, and that drives a lot of her motives. I just think it was very well done. And I really like when Des, who is an old man, who it turns out that he and his wife had their son replaced when he was about 8. And he's commenting that his wife noticed things about their son, small things that only a mother would notice. This acknowledgement that you do know your kid better than anyone, so to other people, you're just going to look crazy. And she does, and I think it does a good job with that. You can see why everyone else would be like, well, she's just cracking under the stress.
Yeah, and I like that it had every other character that she, tries to talk to about this, her son being a changeling. They point out as well that, those behaviors by themselves don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Kids do that stuff. Like, he eats a spider at one point. Yeah, that's gross and creepy. And it's unusual because her kid was terrified of spiders. But even the doctor that she mentions it to says, well, it's not the weirdest thing I've seen a kid eat.
Yeah.
Because that's so true. Like, kids will just put shit in their mouths.
Or up their nose.
Yeah. But it's all of these things combined after already something strange about her kid going missing in the woods for a minute where this weird sinkhole is. It's all of it combined that means something to her. And I like that. She didn't just go off the rails after one or two things.
And like you said, it's really nice to see that she first thinks it's something with herself.
Yeah.
That she's just having anxiety attacks or whatever. And so she gets a prescription to help her sleep at night.
Yeah. Also, the way that this kid kills, he kills their neighbor, their elderly neighbor, who she clocks that he's a changeling immediately, but she's the town crazy, so nobody believes her. And he buries her head under the earth, so she suffocates. And I looked up if anybody had ever died that way, because I was just curious. And I couldn't find anything. But I did find that if you are skiing and snowboarding in a heavily wooded area with a lot of trees, there's a thing called a tree well, which is the snow doesn't fall evenly around the roots of the trees. So if you ski or snowboard over that, the powder will fall away. You will flip and your head will be buried in the snow and you will suffocate within minutes. And so that's a new fear for me. And another reason that I will not ski or snowboard in the woods ever.
Just stick to tubing.
Just stick to tubing. Well, I mean, I'll ski and snowboard on, like, resort where there's no trees.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is fall. I mean, I do that all the time. That's fine.
But I really liked this movie. I think it was a really good take on the changeling, and you really felt the sense of her kid being replaced. And that fear, the drive of like, well, I have to get my son back. And especially for her being a domestic violence victim, like trying to start over on her own, where it's the one thing I have left has been stolen from me.
Yeah, and she also clearly liked her kid. And I like that too. They had this relationship where you can tell there's stress there because they've moved. He doesn't understand why they left his dad behind. He misses his dad. He doesn't like this new area. But, I mean, they're a parent and child. She is his mom. But they're also friends. Like, they play games together. They know each other. She gets him. They're each other's kind of weird. And I like that.
Yeah. It's a very solid movie with a middle grade horror title and poster. It does look like something I would have read in middle school and really liked. But very solid changeling movie, very solid horror.
Super well shot.
Yes.
I love how this movie looked. And that means good things for me with Evil Dead Rise, which I will watch shortly.
Next up,
we have Isolation from 2005 by Billy O'Brien, who directed a movie that I am interested to see now that I have found out about it. It's called I Am Not a Serial Killer. And it's about a teenage boy who is trying to hunt down this serial killer while keeping down his own murderous urges.
Ah.
Yeah. On a remote Irish farm, 5 people become unwilling participants in an experiment that goes nightmarishly wrong. I said, incredible, all caps. Incredible little atmospheric horror film. Creature feature, but more along the line of Alien than Dog Soldiers. Extremely well-paced tension. No one even dies for the whole first hour, but because of that, the first kill feels like a sucker punch. Extremely well made, but special credit to the phenomenal cast, most of which I recognized from other horror hits. John Lynch, who played my second favorite character, second only to Lady Silence in The Terror, Essie Davis from The Babadook, Sean Harris from Prometheus, Marcel Yours from The Cave, the undercooked American sister of The Descent. It's not good. It's not good. It came out almost at the exact same time, filmed almost the whole same time. Both productions knew about each other, but started separately on their own.
And they were like, well, we're
Both
just going to go
literally
through.
the same plot. It's a group of explorers going into a cave system that they haven't explored before, and all of the dangers and treachery of that. But also, now there are monsters in the cave trying to get them. It's crazy that they're literally like the same.
It's spelunking.
And just happened.
But look out.
Yeah, and just happened separately at the same time.
Feels like such an American title, too, where it's like, we have to be direct. People
It's
are
the cave,
stupid.
yeah. And the incomparable Ruth Negga from Preacher, which when her name came up on the credits, Wolfgang very loudly goes, Ruth Negga? It was a Beyonce meme. The anatomical horror is unrelenting in the first hour, and the creature feature finale is played impeccably straight by the talented cast who never let it fall into the cheesy territory it so easily might have become. The setting works hard as well. I love how muddy and desolate the farm is, filled with dilapidated buildings, loss of power, coats on in the house because the heating doesn't work. Dan tells Mary he inherited the farm from his father, and his final words are, "You can't leave the farm," just before he dies there. As someone with family from a broken down dairy farm, I felt that. I know so many people born on a struggling farm who will stubbornly stay on that dying farm until they themselves die. Also, one of the best end credit song choices I've ever seen. 5 stars. So just kidding, this one was the highest rated on my list.
This was really interesting to watch because we both have family that comes from upstate New York. If you had told me that this was filmed in upstate New York, I would have believed you 100%. Yeah. And I even said this, that it's so funny that this tells so much about like our families and backgrounds, that when I saw the farm, I was like, no, that looks real. You know, it doesn't look like a movie set. I think Pearl does this very well, where when you see Pearl after watching X, you know, you're supposed to see the farm back when it was thriving, and it's supposed to look very nice and clean and whatever. But to me, I'm like, oh, that's like a movie set. This is real.
Yeah. Movie farms always look beautiful and picturesque. Real life farms, that earth will suck you dry.
Right. And again, what I want to say is Pearl does that intentionally.
Yeah.
But this, like,
I should say real life farms without money.
Without money.
There are some farms that are like, oh, they're big money makers.
There was a time we were driving through that area and we passed by this literally picturesque farm with white picket fences and a bright red barn.
Bright red.
And we just passed by it, and like there's like this sign out saying the name of the farm, and we just looked at it, and I looked at her and I was like, oh, they got money.
They got mad money. Yeah, that's not usual though.
No.
Like most farms look like this guy's farm.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's just there's something about it where when you watch it and you're like, I've chased barn kittens around barns like this.
Yeah.
Where and you really feel it in that sense of well, I'm going to try. Like, I have to try and make this profitable.
I've cut my hand on so much corrugated metal. For sure.
The styling of them is really good, where, it's old farm clothes.
Old country clothes covered in mud, the galoshes.
And I even said that, like, what's kind of interesting when you go to rural places is that it's not like the modern world doesn't exist. Farmers have smartphones. And so the styling here, where it's, very traditional looking, kind of like a chore coat and then a hoodie underneath, because it's just whatever cheap old clothes are around.
Right, whatever you get at the Goodwill.
And and I like the moment when he gives the traveler kid the pair of like barn boots, and it's clearly just an old pair of boots. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you're gonna need those going out there, because if you're going out to help or do chores or whatever, you just grab whatever old pair of boots.
It was really good farm setting, good farm dressing.
The use of like color and stuff, where everything is this like same kind of
very
muddy
muted. Yeah.
And muted, and then you have the bright yellow raincoat.
Mm-hmm. The horror staple.
And even then with Ruth Negga's character, where like her clothes are very clean and very bright, and giving her background, just telling you without making it explicit.
Agreed. It's great. I loved this movie. The tension is unbelievable. It's so well done. It genuinely really did remind me of Alien, like the whole first hour of you're just waiting. Something's about to pop off, and then boy, it pops off.
And for this to take it so seriously, when the creature feature monster is this unborn cow fetus with a skeleton on the outside, and the way that it wiggles around. But no, it's genuinely very tense, and it moves very fast. Like, you believe it. It doesn't look...
It's played so straight, and that saves it, because it so easily could have been, Zombievers or something.
Yeah.
This could have been so silly. But the cast sells it so well. And I mean, also just the way it's filmed, you don't really see the creature a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that always helps. It always helps if you don't show the creature a ton, because then you don't see the issues.
You put all your money into moments that work, and then you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah, this was a really good movie. When you think of like a horror movie, this is like a very solid, good one. It's not a generic one, throw it on a pile like The Canal. This one actually, it's good.
It's good, and it's memorable.
And I really like how it's also just gross, and the realities of working on a dairy farm.
During the calving scene, I mean, they're just covered in blood, and Jamie and Mary, Ruthnega, and her girlfriend, or her boyfriend.
Wishful thinking.
Whoops. That was about me. Ruthnega and her boyfriend see him, and they don't know that he's been calving, but he's just covered in blood, and they're clearly very unsettled by that because they don't understand. They're not from a farm. But that's the reality, yeah. Birth is a messy, messy, gross business, no matter which animal.
And even we talked about the country and like community where his cow is calving, and it's a really difficult birth, and there's Jamie and Mary who are in a caravan like on the road in front of his house, and he's just like, well, you need to get going. And they're like, well, we're not on your land, like we're just gonna be here for the night. He's like, fine. And then he runs to them and he's just like, my phone's not working, I need help. I'm gonna lose the cow. Yeah.
And the calf.
And after Jamie helps him, he's like, yeah, you guys could stay here.
Yeah.
He's like,
yep, that's country, baby.
And it's just...
You help with a livestock birth? All right, you got squatters' rights.
You got squatters' rights now. You said this, that like he has such a kind face.
He's such a kind face.
And
John Kindface Lynch.
I know people like that. I'm related to
I'm
them.
related to people like that. Like,
and
this is an uncle.
And just the way that you understand he's been struggling so much, and that's why he agreed to do this test, but he still really loves these animals.
He loves these animals.
I really love the line he has when he finally loses it on the mad scientist, and he's just like, they're not animals to you, they're just test subjects.
They're just like your lab rats, you're fucking evil.
Yeah, the fact that he uses the word animals, that most people would use animals to dehumanize or debase, but for him, he's lived around
that
them.
Means something. Yeah, they're living beings
that
under his
take care of.
Yeah, and he only loses it. He only breaks down and gets outraged when all of his animals are dead. His whole farm is dead now because of this man and his science experiment.
And the way that he's so just callous about it.
And just killing all of them with no thought.
And also, like, he hadn't been paying. He was John Lynch's character was supposed to be getting paid for it, and he's snappy and angry when they come to check on the cow pregnant because he hasn't been paid yet.
Yeah.
And he's like...
And that's why his phone goes out, too, because he can't pay his bills.
And he's wearing a coat in the house because he can't heat it.
Yeah, it's very good. I love when they show the destitution that you see a lot in farms, and especially, like, dairy farms. Dairy farming... Don't go into that if you want money.
If you like money, this is not the job for you.
But again, like, he was born into it. And that's so often the case.
And you can just tell that when, after all the cows are dead, where he's like, he's ready to just make this stand and die because for him, it's already over.
Right. He doesn't care if he makes it out.
And obviously he wasn't going to make it, you know, when Mary throws him in the car, but it really feels like there's a moment where he just decides to end it. Like, he just decides to stop fighting.
Can't leave the farm.
Yeah, and he didn't.
And then Mary turns out to be pregnant from her infected boyfriend's fucked up cow fetus spunk. And girl, abort that thing.
Kill that thing.
Abort it. I'm so sorry, girl.
And I think that this is also a very good horror movie where you really feel the deaths, where you don't want it to happen. You genuinely want Jamie and Mary to make it out. Because you kind of understand that John Lynch's character is a tragic figure. Right. You're kind of like, okay, I can see him dying. But it's like, Jamie's the first death, and it's a gut punch. It's because there's been such a buildup. There's been an hour of just waiting for this tension to burst. And you know it's going to be him. And you don't want it to be, because the film does a really good job of showing that Jamie's a traveler, Mary's family doesn't like him, and they're literally hiding from her family. They fear for their safety. And she says that if her brothers find them, they'll kill him. And it's so well handled when, you know, there's a moment, Dan and Mary Mary are sitting talking, and he's just like, so how's it going with the traveler fella? And she's like, it's fine. And goes, do you get along with your family, you with his? And she just looks at him and says, if my brothers find us, they'll kill him. And it's just like understood.
And he kind of suspected it too, you can tell. Also, this film doesn't shy away, like it doesn't hold your hand with it because it just kind of expects you to understand, but it doesn't shy away from, travelers are hated.
There's a guard that shows up and is just openly hateful. It is just saying insane shit.
Yeah.
Like, well, you don't let them stay here or they'll show up with a sheaf of papers to take your land from you.
No, he was talking about the lawyer that's after Dan's farm. With that.
Oh, okay.
He did say to Dan, don't let them stay because they'll steal everything. And Dan's like, what is there here to steal? Which was a good line. Like, good point. What?
And even just the fact that he's willing to hide them in one of the barns and is just seen as like, well, what the fuck's that? Just the idea of him being kind to them is so looked down on. And
everyone just thinks he's being stupid and naive.
And so when Jamie dies, it's not just that, oh, how awful that he got caught up in this, where it's like, you can tell he already had such a hard life.
Yeah.
And he and Mary were just trying to make it.
Yeah. It's very sad. It's very sad. Mary makes it though.
With her demon baby.
Girl.
Kill that thing.
Kill that thing.
I'm so sorry. I know it's your last little bit of Jamie.
Yeah, I know. Like I get the complex feelings about it because she clearly loved him. This is you're the love of my life situation.
We're literally
I'm giving it up
everything
for you, and then he dies. But
girl,
sad. But
kill that thing.
There's other travelers.
And the thing is, she wasn't in the room for the conversation where it's revealed that this virus can now infect humans.
Yeah, she doesn't know for sure, but she suspects.
She does. Like, the way she's looking at that ultrasound,
yeah,
the doctor's
she suspects. You can tell. Like, the relief in her face when the doctor says,
it's a healthy girl.
Healthy, normal baby. You have nothing to worry about. Like, she looks on the brink of tears because she was clearly so stressed out about that. So she clearly suspects. Girl, any suspicion, kill that thing.
It's just going to chest burst her out of you.
Great film. Loved it. Big fans.